My name is Tom. I'm 34 years old, and up until recently, I believed my life with my wife Karen was perfect. We had been married for 7 years, had 2 wonderful children, and lived in a cozy house in the suburbs. Everything appeared fine on the outside, but looking back, there were signs I missed or ignored. Karen and I met in college, and our relationship felt like a whirlwind romance you only see in movies. We married right after graduation and started building our life together. TM's always been the more outgoing one, working as a real estate agent, while I work in IT. Her job required a lot of social events and late nights, but I never doubted her. I trusted her completely, maybe too much. We hired a babysitter named Matt a couple of years ago when our youngest was born. Matt is 22, a college student, and seemed like the perfect fit for our family. He was fantastic with the kids, always polite and just an all-around good guy, or so I thought. Karen insisted on hiring him because she met him through a client, and he came highly recommended. I didn't think twice about it. A few months ago, things started to feel off. Karen became more distant, always on her phone, and her late nights became more frequent. I thought it was due to her job stress, but something didn't feel right. She would come home late some nights smelling like alcohol, which was out of character for her. Our intimate life suffered too. She always had an excuse, too tired, not in the mood, or the kids were demanding her attention. I tried to be understanding, but it was hard not to feel rejected. The breaking point came last Friday. I usually work until 6 p.m., but that day I finished a big project early and decided to surprise Karen and the kids by coming home early. I thought we could have a family night, order some pizza, and watch a movie. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Matt VJTMT's car parked outside. It was in VJTMT unusual for him to be there, but something felt wrong. The house was too quiet. As I walked in, I made my way through the house, calling out for Karen and the kids, but there was no answer. As I got closer to the living room, I heard muffled voices and laughter. The closer I got, the clearer it became that it was Karen and Matt. I peeked through the living room window and saw them on the couch, way too close for comfort. My heart sank when I saw them kiss. It wasn't VGTM, just a peck. It was passionate, and it shattered me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, the mother of my children, was cheating on me with our babysitter. I wanted to burst in and confront them, but I was paralyzed with shock and anger. I took out my phone and recorded a bit of what I saw just to make sure I wasn't VJTMT imagining things. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the scene in my head, wondering how long this had been happening and what I had done to deserve it. Karen came to bed late as usual, and I pretended to be asleep. I needed time to figure out my next steps. Should I confront her? Should I leave? My mind was racing with a million questions, but one thing was clear. I needed to know the whole truth. So here I am sharing my story, hoping for some advice and maybe a bit of support. The following day, I kept my emotions in check and acted like everything was normal. I got up, made breakfast for the kids, and kissed Karen on the cheek as I always did. She smiled at me with the same smile that used to make me feel loved, but now it just made me feel betrayed. I knew I had to stay calm and collected. Over the next few days, I began to observe Karen VJTM's behavior more closely. I noticed she was on her phone a lot more, always texting or checking messages. Whenever I asked her about it, she brushed it off, saying it was work-related. I knew better but played along. I started checking her phone whenever I got the chance, but she was smart. She deleted all her messages and calls with Matt. I decided to get a bit more tech-savvy and installed a spy app on her phone. It was surprisingly easy, and within a day I had access to all her texts, call logs, and even her location. I felt a pang of guilt for invading her privacy, but I needed to know the truth. Sure enough, there were plenty of messages between her and Matt, all confirming my worst fears. They had been seeing each other for months, meeting up whenever they had the chance, even in our own home when I was NVDGMTT'd around. Reading those messages was like pouring salt on an open wound. They talked about how much they enjoyed being together, how thrilling it was to sneak around, and even made fun of me for being so clueless. Karen was a completely different person in those texts, someone I didn't recognize. Instead of confronting her right away, I started thinking about how I could turn the situation around. I wanted revenge, but more than that, I wanted her to understand the gravity of her betrayal. I wanted her to feel the same pain and humiliation she had inflicted on me. One night, while Karen was out with friends, I did some digging and found out that Matt had a bit of a checkered past. He had been involved in some minor legal trouble before, nothing serious but enough to raise some eyebrows. I figured if I could gather enough dirt on him, I could hit him where it hurt the most. I started collecting all the evidence I could find. I saved all the messages and call logs, took screenshots, and even recorded a few of their phone conversations. I was building a case, and it was growing stronger every day. I also reached out to a friend of mine who worked in law enforcement, just to get some advice on how to handle things without getting myself into trouble. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got, but I also felt a strange sense of empowerment. I wasn't going to be the victim here. I was going to take control of the situation and make sure both Karen and Matt paid for what they did. For now, I kept my cool around Karen, pretending everything was fine. I knew the time for confrontation would come soon, but I wanted it to be on my terms. I wanted to catch them off guard, just like they had done to me. It was a week after my initial discovery, and I had gathered enough evidence to take action, but I still hadn't decided exactly how I wanted to play it out. I spent countless nights lying awake, my mind racing with thoughts of revenge and justice. Karen continued her deceitful behavior, oblivious to the fact that I knew everything. One evening, Karen mentioned she had to work late. I knew it was another excuse to meet Matt. I casually suggested I take the kids to my parents' house for the weekend. She seemed relieved and agreed without hesitation. I packed up the kids and headed out, but instead of going to my parents', I drove around the neighborhood until I saw Matt VJTM's car pull up in front of our house. My blood boiled, but I kept my cool. I knew this was the perfect opportunity to put my plan into motion. With Karen out of the house more frequently, I took the chance to install a few hidden cameras around the living room and bedroom. It was NVDTMT something I ever thought IVJTMD do, but desperate times call for desperate measures. The footage would be indisputable evidence of her betrayal. That night, I kept an eye on the camera feeds through my phone. It was like watching a horror movie in slow motion. Seeing them together, touching, laughing, and eventually moving to our bedroom was almost more than I could bear. I recorded everything, making sure I had multiple copies saved in different locations. The next morning, I reviewed the footage, my hands trembling with rage. Karen came home cheerful and completely unaware of what I had on her. It took all my self-control not to confront her right then and there, but I knew I needed to play the long game to ensure she faced the full consequences. I continued to gather evidence over the next few days, recording every encounter they had. The more I watched, the more resolved I became. I wasn't VDJTMT just going to confront her. I was going to destroy the life she built on lies. The following week, Karen announced she had a business trip and would be gone for a couple of days. It was the perfect opportunity for me to take action. I kissed her goodbye, wishing her a safe trip, and as soon as she left, I got to work. I called in sick at work, telling them I had a family emergency, which was NVDJTM, far from the truth. I spent the day making copies of all the recordings, printing out the incriminating messages, and organizing everything into a neat little package. When Karen returned, I continued to act normally, which was increasingly difficult. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman who had shattered my heart. But I had to keep up the charade a little longer. Finally, the day came when I was ready to confront her. I waited until the kids were at school, ensuring they wouldn't be around to witness the fallout. I set up the laptop on the dining room table, queued up the video, and waited for Karen to come home. She walked in smiling and set her purse down. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" "Sit down, Karen," I said, my voice colder than I intended. She looked puzzled, but did as I asked. I hit play on the video, and her expression changed from confusion to horror as she watched herself and Matt on the screen. "What is this?" she stammered, her face draining of color. "This," I said, gesturing to the laptop, "is the end of our marriage." She started to cry, trying to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. "Tom, I can explain, VJ." "No," I interrupted, standing up and pacing the room. "You don't get to explain. I've seen enough. I've heard enough. You've been lying to me, cheating on me, and making a fool out of me in my own home." Tears streamed down her face, but I felt no sympathy. "I trusted you, Karen. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me." She sobbed, trying to find the right words, but there were none that could undo the damage. "I'm sorry, Tom. I'm so sorry." "Sorry isn't good enough," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm filing for divorce. I've already spoken to a lawyer. You need to pack your things and leave. I can't look at you right now." Karen's cries grew louder, but I didn't waver. "Think about the kids, Tom. Please, let's talk about this. We can fix it." "You should have thought about the kids before you decided to cheat," I said coldly. "You've destroyed this family, and I won't let you continue to hurt us. Pack your things and go, now." With that, I left the room, needing to get away from her. As I walked out of the house, I felt a mix of pain and relief. This was just the beginning of a long, painful journey, but at least now I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my life. My focus turned to Matt. I wasn't going to let him walk away from this unscathed. He had inserted himself into my family and violated my trust. He needed to face the consequences of his actions. First, I did a little digging into Matt VJTEM's life. He was a college student with a clean record, aside from some minor legal troubles. He lived off campus in a small apartment. Knowing his routine and background helped me plan my next move. I decided to hit him where it would hurt the most: his reputation and future. I compiled all the evidence I had of their affair: the videos, the text messages, and the incriminating photos. I saved everything on multiple USB drives, making sure I had backup copies stored safely. One evening I drove to Matt's apartment, my hand shaking with anger as I knocked on his door. When he answered, the smug look on his face vanished the moment he saw me. "Tom, what are you doing here?" he stammered, clearly nervous. "We need to talk," I said, pushing past him into the apartment. He didn't dare stop me. I walked into his living room and sat down, glaring at him. "Sit." He sat down across from me, his face pale. "Look, man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I scoffed. "Didn't mean for it to happen? You've been screwing my wife for months. Don't insult me with your apologies." He opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to listen, and you're going to do exactly as I say. If you don't, I'll make sure everyone in your life knows what kind of person you are." I pulled out one of the USB drives and tossed it onto the table. On that drive is everything: videos, texts, pictures. I've got copies stored in multiple places. If you try anything, I'll release it all to your college, your professors, your family, and every potential employer I can find. Matt's eyes widened in fear as he picked up the USB drive, realizing the gravity of the situation. "What do you want from me?" "First," I said, leaning forward, "you're going to quit your job as our babysitter, effective immediately. You're going to stay away from my family and never contact Karen again. Understood?" He nodded vigorously. "Yes, I understand." "Good. Second, you're going to write a letter of apology to my children. They may not understand everything now, but one day they will. You owe them that much." Matt swallowed hard and nodded again. "I'll do it. I promise." "Third," I continued, "you're going to inform your college about what you've done. Tell them you've been involved in inappropriate conduct and need to step back from your responsibilities. If you don't, I'll make sure they find out anyway." His face turned even paler, but he didn't argue. He knew he had no other choice. "I'll tell them." I stood up, towering over him. "Remember, Matt, I've got copies of everything. If I hear that you've tried to contact Karen or caused any trouble, I'll destroy you. Do you understand?" He nodded, trembling. "I understand. I won't do anything, I swear." I left his apartment feeling a sense of grim satisfaction. It wasn't enough to heal the wound Karen and Matt had inflicted, but it was a start. I had taken control of the situation and made sure Matt would face the consequences of his actions. The next day, I received an email from Matt. It was a scanned copy of the letter he had written to my children, filled with apology and regret. I didn't know if my kids would ever read it, but it was something. He also informed me that he had resigned from his job and contacted his college, admitting to his misconduct. With my revenge on Matt executed and my anger slightly tempered, it was time to face the inevitable, divorcing Karen. I knew this would be a long, grueling process, but it was necessary for my healing and the well-being of our children. I had already consulted with a divorce lawyer and gathered all the evidence of Karen's infidelity to support my case. The morning I served Karen the divorce papers, I felt a mix of emotions. There was anger, of course, but also a profound sadness. Despite everything, she had been my partner for many years, and it was hard to let go of all the memories we had shared. But the betrayal had shattered our marriage beyond repair, and there was no going back. I chose to serve the papers at home when the kids were at school, ensuring they wouldn't be DJTM and witness the confrontation. Karen was in the kitchen sipping her coffee when I walked in with the documents in hand. "Karen," I said, my voice steady but firm, "we need to talk." She looked up, her eyes wary. "What is it, Tom?" I placed the papers on the table. "These are divorce papers. I'm filing for divorce on the grounds of infidelity." Her face paled and she reached for the papers with trembling hands. "Tom, please, can't we talk about this? We can work through it." I shook my head. "No, Karen, there's no working through this. You betrayed me and our family. This is the only way forward." Tears welled up in her eyes as she read through the documents. "But the kids, what about the kids?" "We'll figure out a custody arrangement that VJTM's best for them," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. "They deserve stability and a loving environment, and right now, that's not something we can provide together." Karen sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "I'm so sorry, Tom. I never meant for it to go this far." I took a deep breath, feeling a pang of sympathy despite everything. "Sorry doesn't VJTM change what happened. We need to do what VDJTM's right for the kids and ourselves." Over the next few weeks, our lawyers worked out the details of the divorce. We agreed to joint custody of the kids, with them spending weekdays with Karen and weekends with me. The house would be sold and the proceeds divided. It was painful, but it was the fairest solution. One afternoon, as I was packing up my things, my daughter Emily walked into the room. She was only 7, but had a keen sense of awareness. "Daddy, why are you packing?" she asked, her big brown eyes filled with confusion. I knelt down to her level and took her small hands in mine. "Emily, sweetheart, Mommy and I are going to live in different houses from now on, but you JJT and I'll still see both of us, and we both love you very much." Her eyes filled with tears, and she hugged me tightly. "But why, Daddy? Why can't we JJTM, you and Mommy stay together?" I struggled to find the right words. "Sometimes grown-ups have problems that are too big to fix, but none of this is your fault, okay? We're still a family, just in a different way." As I held her, my heart broke all over again. The impact of Karen's betrayal reached far beyond just the two of us. It affected our innocent children who had no part in this mess. It fueled my determination to create a stable, loving environment for them, no matter how difficult the road ahead might be. The day Karen and I signed the final divorce papers was surreal. We sat in a sterile conference room, our lawyers by our sides, and methodically went through the documents. Each signature felt like a nail in the coffin of our marriage. When it was over, Karen looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Tom, I know you VJTM'll never forgive me, but I hope one day you can find peace." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. There was no more room for anger or blame, only a hollow acceptance of what had transpired. I left the conference room feeling a strange mix of relief and sorrow. The chapter of my life with Karen was officially closed, and it was time to look to the future. I had my kids to focus on, my career, and the daunting task of rebuilding my life from the ground up. As I drove away, I allowed myself to shed a few tears, not for Karen, but for the life we had once dreamed of, now forever lost. But I also felt a glimmer of hope. I had survived the worst, and with time, I knew I would heal. The journey ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. One step at a time, I would move forward, stronger and wiser for the trials I had endured. With the divorce finalized, I thought the worst was behind me. Little did I know, Karen wasn't VJMT done with her schemes. She was furious about the divorce and the way I exposed her affair. Her anger fueled a vendetta against me, and she was determined to make my life as miserable as possible. A few weeks after the divorce, strange things started happening. I received a call from my boss informing me that someone had anonymously accused me of misconduct at work. The accusations were baseless, but they triggered an internal investigation. It was a stressful and humiliating experience, but fortunately, my colleagues and superiors knew me well enough to see through the lies. Next, Karen tried to turn our children against me. She would tell them lies about me, painting me as the villain who destroyed our family. Emily and Jason, my 4-year-old son, would come to me with questions no child should have to ask. VDJ and Daddy, did you really make Mommy cry because you don't love her anymore? JJ, Emily asked one evening, her innocent eyes filled with confusion and hurt. I hugged her tightly, my heart aching. VJ and Gemily, sweetheart, I love you and Jason more than anything in the world. Sometimes grown-ups have problems that are too big to fix, but that doesn't VDATMT mean I don't VDAJTMT love you or your mom. It VDATM's just something that happened between us. DJK, despite my reassurances, the damage was done. The kids were caught in the crossfire, and it broke my heart to see them struggle with the situation. Karen also tried to make my life difficult financially. She contested the divorce settlement, claiming she deserved more than what was agreed upon. She dragged me back to court, but thankfully the judge saw through her tactics and upheld the original settlement. It was a small victory, but it came at the cost of more stress and legal fees. The final straw came when she called Child Protective Services, CPS, on me, alleging that I was an unfit father. The accusations were horrifying and completely false, but they prompted an investigation. CPS visited my home, interviewed me and the kids, and even spoke with my neighbors. It was a nightmare. I couldn't believe Karen would stoop so low, but I should have known better. She was desperate and vindictive. The investigation dragged on for weeks, casting a dark shadow over my life. One evening after putting the kids to bed, I sat down with my lawyer, Laura, who had become a trusted ally throughout this ordeal. VJ and Laura, how do I make this stop? KJ, I asked, my voice filled with frustration and exhaustion. Laura sighed, her expression sympathetic. VDJ and Tom, we need to build a solid case against Karen VJTM, false accusations and harassment. Document everything, every lie, every false report, every attempt she makes to manipulate the situation. The more evidence we have, the stronger our case will be. DAKJ, I nodded, determined to fight back. VDJNJI can VJTMTT let her keep doing this. ITVDJTM's not just affecting me, it VDJTM's hurting the kids. DJKJ, over the next few weeks I meticulously documented everything. I kept a journal of every interaction with Karen, every instance of her trying to turn the kids against me, and every false report she made. I also installed security cameras around my house to capture any attempt she might make to escalate her harassment. One day, Emily came home from a visit with Karen and handed me a note. VDJ Jane Mommy said to give this to you. DJKJ. I opened the note, my anger boiling as I read Karen VJTM's venomous words. She accused me of everything under the sun, threatening to take full custody of the kids and ruin my life. It was the final piece of evidence I needed. With my lawyer VJTM's help, I filed for a restraining order against Karen. We presented all the evidence of her harassment, the false reports, and the manipulation of our children. The judge took one look at the mountain of evidence and granted the restraining order, limiting Karen VDJJTM's contact with me and the kids to supervised visits. It was a hard-fought victory, but it brought a sense of relief. Karen VDJ TM's attempts to sabotage my life were finally being curtailed, and I could start focusing on rebuilding. In the aftermath, I had a long talk with Emily and Jason explaining things in terms they could understand. I reassured them that both their parents loved them, but sometimes grown-ups have to make difficult decisions to keep everyone safe and happy. Slowly but surely, things began to improve. The kids adjusted to the new normal, and I focused on being the best father I could be. I found solace in my work and started seeing a therapist to help process everything I had been through. One evening, as I was tucking Emily into bed, she looked up at me with her big, innocent eyes. "VDJ and Daddy, are things going to be okay now?" "DJ KJ," I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "VDJ, yes, sweetheart. Things are going to be okay. Wev, D, Tim are going to be just fine." "DJ K." As I turned off the light and closed her bedroom door, I felt a sense of peace. The storm had passed, and while the road ahead was still uncertain, I knew we would face it together, stronger than before. Just when I thought things were finally settling down, life threw another curveball my way. It happened on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday. I was at work, focused on a project, when I received a call from the principal of Emily VDJ TM School. My heart sank as I answered, fearing the worst. "VDJ Memster Parker, this is Principal Thompson. We need you to come to the school immediately. There VTM's been an incident involving Emily." DJKGA, panic surged through me. "VDJNG's she okay? What happened?" "DJKJ VJNJ Chev JM is physically unharmed, but DJ TM's urgent that we discuss this in person. Please come as soon as you can. DJK?" I rushed to the school, my mind racing with possibilities. When I arrived, I was led to the principal VDJTM's office, where Emily sat, her eyes red from crying. Next to her was a stern-looking woman I didn't recognize. "VDGN Mr. Parker, this is Miss Daniels from Child Protective Services," DJKJ Principal Thompson said. "VJJNJWEV JTMV called her in because Emily reported something very troubling today. DJKJ?" I knelt down in front of Emily, trying to stay calm. "VDJN, sweetheart, what VDJTM's going on?" "DJK." Emily looked at me with tears in her eyes. "VDJN, Daddy, I didn't mean to make trouble. I just told them what Mommy said." "DJKJ, VJ, what did Mommy say?" "DJKJ," I asked gently, my heart breaking for her. Emily hesitated, then whispered, "VJNJ, Mommy said that if you don VJ, Minty, let her see us more. Chev DJ, I'll tell everyone that you heard us." "JKJ." The room spun as her words sank in. Karen was threatening our daughter, using her as a pawn to manipulate me. I felt a surge of anger, but forced myself to stay composed for Emily VJ TM's sake. Principal Thompson and Miss Daniels exchanged a grim look. "VDJNJ Mepster Parker, based on Emily VJ TM's statement, we need to take this very seriously, DJK," Miss Daniels said. "VDANJ WebJ Tim Ree going to launch a full investigation." DKJ, I nodded, feeling helpless and furious. "VDNJ, I understand. Please do whatever you need to ensure my children are safe." DKJ, over the next few days, the investigation unfolded. CPS interviewed Karen, who of course denied everything, painting herself as the victim. Emily VRTM's words, however, were compelling evidence. She was young but clear about what her mother had said. During this tumultuous time, I kept a close eye on the kids, making sure they felt safe and loved. The strain of the situation was palpable, but I knew I had to stay strong for them. Then, just as things seemed to be spiraling out of control, an unexpected ally emerged. Karen VDJ TM's sister, Hannah. We had always been cordial, but never particularly close. Out of the blue, she reached out to me. "VDJ and Tom, can we talk?" "DJKJ," she asked over the phone, her voice tense. "VDJ, of course, Hannah. What VJJTM's going on?" "DJKJ, VJNJIT VJJTM's about Karen. I've been worried about her behavior lately, and I think you need to know some things." DJK, we met at a local CAF GC, and Hannah didn't DJJTMT mince words. She had noticed Karen VDJTM's erratic behavior and her growing obsession with getting back at me. Hannah had also found messages on Karen VDJTM's phone, messages that suggested she was willing to go to extreme lengths to win custody of the kids, including fabricating evidence and manipulating Emily. VDJ can vjtmet stand by and watch her destroy you and use the kids like this, DJJ Hannah said, her eyes filled with concern. VJNJI want to help. IVDJTML testify if I have to. DJKJ. Her words were a lifeline. With Hannah VJ/TME's testimony and the mounting evidence from the investigation, Karen VDJTM's credibility crumbled. The court granted me full custody of the kids, with Karen VDJTM's visitation rights severely limited and supervised. Karen was furious, but there was little she could do. Her actions had finally caught up with her. It was a bittersweet victory. While I was relieved to have my children safe and with me, it was heartbreaking to see the person I once loved reduced to such desperation and deceit. Life slowly began to return to a new normal. Emily and Jason thrived under the stable environment I worked hard to provide. Hannah stayed in touch, becoming a valuable part of our support system. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Emily looked up at me with a smile. VJ and Daddy, IVDJ Timam M, glad we VJMra all together. You've Timer the best daddy in the world. DJKJ, tears welled up in my eyes as I hugged her. VJNJ, thank you, sweetheart. I love you both so much. DJKJ, months passed and life began to settle into a new steady rhythm. The kids were adjusting well, and I was beginning to find a new sense of normalcy. I had even started dating again, cautiously optimistic about the future. But just when I thought the worst was behind me, life threw one last curveball my way. It was a crisp Saturday morning, and I decided to clean out the garage, something IVJITMD been putting off for months. As I sifted through old boxes and dusty shelves, I came across an old shoebox tucked away in the corner. Curious, I opened it up and found a stack of letters and photos. The first few letters were innocent enough, old love notes between Karen and me from our early days. But as I dug deeper, I found a series of letters addressed to Karen, dated from around the time our marriage started to fall apart. They were from someone named Eric. I felt a chill run down my spine as I read the letters. Eric VDJTM's words were filled with affection and passion, describing secret meetings and plans for a future together. He talked about how he couldn't DJTM wait for Karen to leave me so they could start their new life. One letter in particular stood out. It was dated just a few weeks before I discovered Karen VDJTM's affair with Matt. Eric wrote about a trip they were planning, a romantic getaway to celebrate their new beginning. My heart pounded as I realized Karen had been seeing Eric long before she got involved with Matt. As I read through the letters, it became clear that Karen had been living a double life for years. The affair with Matt was just the tip of the iceberg. She had been deceiving me and our entire family, planning to leave us for another man while pretending everything was fine. Feeling a mix of anger and betrayal all over again, I continued to dig through the shoebox. At the bottom, I found a small velvet pouch. Inside was a diamond ring, clearly an engagement ring meant for Karen. The reality hit me like a ton of bricks. Karen had been planning to leave me and marry Eric. I took a deep breath, trying to process everything. The lies, the deceit. It was all too much. I had thought the worst was behind me, but this revelation reopened old wounds. I knew I had to confront Karen about this, even if it meant dredging up the past. Later that afternoon, I called Karen and asked her to come over, saying we needed to talk about something important. When she arrived, she looked nervous, sensing the seriousness in my voice. VDJNJ, Tom, what VDJTM's going on? DJKJ, she asked, standing in the living room, her eyes darting around. I walked over to the kitchen table and laid out the letters and the ring. VJNJI found these in the garage today. Care to explain? DJKJ. Her face went pale as she saw the items. She sat down slowly, her hands shaking. VJN Chom, IVDJI, dumb VDJ, Timothy, know what to say. DJKJ, VDJ, now how about the truth for once? DJKJ, I demanded, my voice steady but cold. VJNG of DJ Shumfivi been lying to me for years, Karen, not just with Matt, but with this guy, Eric. You were planning to leave me to start a new life with him. Were you ever going to tell me? GJK. Tears streamed down her face, but I felt no sympathy. VJJNJI, yes, I was seeing Eric. It started a few years ago. I was unhappy and I felt trapped. But things didn't work out with him. By the time I realized my mistake, it was too late. I had already ruined everything. DJKV, DJNJ, you ruined our family, Karen. VJJ, I said, my voice breaking. VJNJ, you made me feel like I was the problem, like I wasn't VJTM good enough, all the while you were planning your escape. DJKJ, VJNJ, TM, sorry, VDDKJ, she sobbed. VJNJ, so sorry, Tom. I know I can't undo the past, but please believe me when I say I never wanted to hurt you. JK, VJNJ, VGDM's too late for apologies. DJKJ, I replied, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. VDJ and Jive DTMV moved on, and IVDJ to MIM building a new life for myself and the kids. You need to live with the consequences of your actions. DKJ, Karen nodded, tears still streaming down her face. VDANJ, I understand. I just hope one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. JKJ, VJNGI, Donvite, Tem, T, know if I can. DJKJ, I said honestly. VDDJ, but I know one thing. I won Vid let your betrayal define me. IVD time I'm going to keep moving forward for myself and for our kids. DJKJ. As Karen left, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The past was painful, but it was finally behind me. I had uncovered the full extent of Karen VDJ at TM's deceit, and it had given me the closure I needed to truly move on. With Karen out of my life, I focused on creating a loving and stable environment for Emily and Jason. We adjusted to our new normal, and I found strength in my role as their father. Hannah remained a supportive presence, and together we worked to ensure the kids felt loved and secure. Over time, the pain of Karen VJTM's betrayal began to fade. I continued to see a therapist who helped me process my emotions and rebuild my sense of self-worth. I also reconnected with old friends and started to explore new hobbies, finding joy in the little things that had once seemed insignificant. One day, while at the park with Emily and Jason, I met a woman named Rachel. She was kind, understanding, and had a gentle spirit that put me at ease. We started talking, and over the next few months, our friendship blossomed into something more. Rachel knew about my past, and she accepted me, flaws and all. With her, I found a sense of peace and happiness I hadn't felt in a long time. She treated Emily and Jason with love and respect, and they quickly grew to adore her. As we stood together watching the kids play, I realized how far I had come. The journey had been long and difficult, but I had emerged stronger and wiser. I had learned to trust again, to open my heart to new possibilities. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Emily looked up at me with a smile. VDJ and Daddy, IVJ Tamim, glad we've JTM are all together. You, Jatmar, the best daddy in the world. DJK. Tears welled up in my eyes as I hugged her. VJNJ, thank you, sweetheart. I love you both so much. DJKJ, life had thrown its hardest punches, but I had stood my ground. I had protected my children, reclaimed my life, and found happiness again. The past would always be a part of me, but it no longer defined me. The future was bright, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. Together, we faced each new day with hope and resilience, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would overcome them together.